Good morning, everyone. My name is Mitch Coons. I'm the communication manager with Clallam County Economic Development Council, and welcome to Mugs with Mitch. There, did it for you, Nick.
Nice.
Colleen, Colleen's out of town today, so I'll be leading coffee with Colleen. Looks like Rick actually he recommended Milk with Mitch. That's a pretty good one too. So we'll figure it out as we go. But either way, thank you for joining us today. Today, we're fortunate to have Nick Wilkes from Impact Washington. He's the director of business development, and he's joined by our very own Roy Mann, who's an account executive for Impact Washington as well. And they have a presentation for us today that's just going to kind of break down everything they're doing in our community. And before we kick it off, I do ask that you just keep yourself on mute for the meeting. Unless you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. Or feel free to throw questions in the chat as well. But besides that, we're excited to hear what Impact Washington's all about. So go ahead and kick it off, guys.
Sure. Roy, I plan to just kind of do the overview, and then maybe if you talk about your role in the territory and a few good successful client visits recently, we'll do that. Nick Wilkes, Director of Business Development, Impact Washington. We saw a great partner in Colleen and the Clallam EDC for a long time and had a great opportunity to go in a more official manner with Clallam and go 50-50 on Roy, if you will, as a community outreach. And so Impact Washington has him as an account executive 50-50 with the Clallam EDC. So Roy's got an interesting scenario when he walks into any manufacturing business, which is what we focus on, is he's got to figure out which card to pull out. And we hope that he's pulling out both and thinking about larger community and economic development work going on, but also Impact Washington's technical advisory work. Roy, maybe a quick background on you, and then I'll kind of go to the impact overview.
Sure. Most of my professional career has been in the commercial real estate services arena. For the last decade, I've worked with the Dunn Lumber Company or the Dunn Lumber family in Seattle with a mixed use mass timber commercial expansion for their operation in Seattle's North Lake neighborhood. And increasingly over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been spending more time here in the peninsula, where I've just fallen in love with the region, let's just say. Anyway, so that's a quick snippet on me.
Great. All right, I'll get to a few slides here. Oh, screen sharing disabled, Mitch.
Oh, just one moment. Let's see.
Always fun to navigate this stuff real time.
Right. All right. Can you share your screen now?
Try again, share screen disabled.
Try one more time.
You also have the slides, so if you want to do that.
Yeah, that's the other one. It says
All right,
allow
it's
visual
open now. Yeah, cool. All right. That working?
Yes.
Cool.
Looks good.
All right. Yeah, quick overview of Impact Washington. We are a resource for manufacturers. If that's, one or two takeaways from today, that's what I want everybody to know is that if you care about manufacturing, if you're interested in manufacturing, if you know a manufacturer, we'd love to meet them. We'd love to talk to them and prove that we can be a resource for them. At Impact Washington, our mission is to help Washington manufacturers thrive. We do that in many ways, but it's usually by going with boots on the ground, with resources, with experts, to do consulting, training, and implementing best practices in manufacturing. And later in the slides, I'll kind of talk through what those services and resources typically look like. From an incorporation standpoint, we are a nonprofit and we're a very impact-driven organization. It's in the name. We'll get to that later on some of the impacts and how that plays in. Speaking of those impacts, so at the end of the day, we actually measure success of our manufacturing projects just like an economic developer would. So every time we go boots on the ground, do an impactful consulting project, a third party actually does an independent survey of that company, and they get a report back to our bosses, our federal bosses, who's the Federal Department of Commerce that sponsors us. How much did we increase sales or retain sales? Same thing for jobs. Did we create or retain any? Did that client have any new investments in people and infrastructure and processes and technology? And lastly, what was our cost savings from that? And so whenever I'm presenting to just a larger audience like this or anybody that cares about manufacturing, I just want you to know where our incentives lie. And our incentives lie in doing impactful work for as many manufacturing clients in Washington State as we can. A little bit about our network and our ecosystem and kind of all the players we play with. So you heard me mention the Federal Department of Commerce. So under the Federal Department of Commerce, there's NIST, NIST. Those are the people that tell us how much a pound is and how large an inch is over in Maryland. A lot of science and technology and engineering in that department. Under that is MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and that's what we are. So there's a center in every state that serves as the MEP under a cooperative agreement. And so we all get a certain amount of funds based upon how many manufacturers we have in our state. And when we go and use those funds, we're drawing down to help offset some costs for us and keep us at market rate. That said, we are a fee-for-service organization, and I'd like to think we've got some pretty world-class consultants as well. If you look at kind of our partnership throughout the state, it's kind of in 3 swim lanes, if you will. A lot of those high-level state partners that care about manufacturing, like Commerce, like AWB. We've got lots of collaboration, coordination with folks like Apex and Ecology, and then obviously WIDA and all the economic development associations. We like to be their right-hand man, and this Clallam relationship is probably the utmost way to express that. If we don't have a formal relationship like we do with Clallam, we're that right-hand man for them when they're doing a business retention and expansion, or even kind of just figuring out what technical services that company needs to succeed. Some other frequent partners are the workforce groups throughout the state. A lot of you, I think I saw Camilla on the call. We partner a lot with community colleges on workforce and incumbent worker training, whether it be the job skills program, the customized training program, and myriad others. Just had a nice chat with the Washington Workforce Association yesterday to figure out how we could get intertwined. Then outside of that, all the industry groups, and there's probably another 20 logos I could put on here, including the Clallam Forest Products Group. But largely speaking, we're good partners with these folks. They're there to help to lift the industry up in the state. We go in and actually help those industries once it's time to improve their people and their processes. Hey, Rebecca. I see Apex in your, I don't know if you meant to raise your hand, but.
Good morning. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, Nick, that I will send you North Olympic Peninsula Apex's logo for you to add to that site of
Great.
people to work with. We're actually not a part of Washington Apex.
That's right. That's right. You guys are your own independent one, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, my slip up. Thanks for the reminder. So we are Washington State focused as the MEP. This puts us well positioned in the regions, as you see. I'm not going to read all these names to you, but the takeaway here is that whether it be in the peninsula, we've got Roy. Throughout the state, these are folks that have spent a lifetime or career typically in business, many of them in manufacturing. And they've, fought the battles in the trenches on the manufacturing floor, started as supervisors, worked their way up. And really the takeaway is that they can relate to anybody in the manufacturing organization they're talking with, from that frontline supervisor all the way to the CEO. They can understand those problems and get to a solution. On top of that, on the right, you see some statewide folks. So Craig Doan is our food and beverage processing specialist. And so he'll tag team any kind of technical services with these account executives if it is a food or a beverage manufacturer specifically. A lot of that time around food quality and food safety. And then I'm sure some of you've maybe seen Miguel around. He's our small and rural expert. And so it's a really unique set of challenges that small, we usually say that's 10 to 20 employees or less for a manufacturing facility. They're just challenged in such a unique way that we put a resource there, and he's got a whole program around to solve that unique challenge set. And we can send this out later if you have any interested connections with those folks, contact list wise.
So James Taylor asks, what about automation?
James, certainly, yeah. Automation is something that we've seen a spike in lately. I'll get to some resources here that we have, some services. Typically, our typical engagement there is start with a bit of a gap assessment. We identify that low-hanging fruit for automation, and then kind of develop a roadmap. Here's the top opportunities. And then if they desire, kind of fully project manage that implementation. James, one thing I'll mention though is since we are impact driven and try to be that trusted advisor is one of the worst things you can do is automate a bad process. So a lot of times somebody comes in and says, we'd like to use automation. And so we always try to first go get on the shop floor, understand that process and really improve it through some muscle, lean manufacturing, those common practices. And then automate what's now a good process. That's really our first step there typically. Love to talk to you later about that if you're interested. Great segue. From our services, we kind of broadly break it up into just 3 big buckets, just for memorization's sake. We've got workforce, growth and innovation, and operational excellence. I would argue that any of these we can do in a manner that is actually helping workforce development, helping upskill or reskill an employee. And we've done, like Camilla's on the call, we've done a lot of that, all of these on JSPs where it might be a technical outcome for the business, but the way we're doing it is actually kind of teaching a man to fish. We're not doing it for them. We're going to help them understand that knowledge, apply it, and then they'll be able to do all of these principles at the end of the day. I'll highlight a few kind of frequent flyers we have here that we deliver quite a bit, especially lately. Leadership development, we find that there's been a kind of a wave, a transition, if you will, from generation to generation. A whole lot of new folks sliding into leadership roles. And then that goes directly into that next one on the right is, I need a strategy. So we've done a whole lot of strategic planning and then also implementing that strategy throughout the business. Training within industry. This one's been around since World War II. That's on the left, and Workforce Solutions there. When we had to retool our entire workforce to go tool up for wartime, there was a massive onslaught of new hires, and the supervisors needed to be equipped to handle that. Well, we're seeing kind of the same thing right now is if you've got a workforce challenge, TWI is a great way to help that supervisor onboard people, upskill them effectively, train them, and also develop really good job instructions. So that's one that we've been having a lot of success with. Automation, as James mentioned. Supply chain, we actually have a supply chain on the last slide here today. We have a QR code for our Supply Chain 101, which is in Squim, right, Roy? Coming up in a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we'll have the QR code there. You can also go on our website and see that. We had some federal funding from the CHIPS and Science Act, previous administration, that helped launch an entire supply chain program. I'll get to some details on that later. And then lastly, a few highlights on operational excellence. Lean manufacturing, it's been around forever. It still applies. Every business, whether it be manufactured or not, very likely has waste in their process. And that waste is just, would your client pay for it? Would your customer pay for it, right? So we want to get all that non-value added work out and focus people on value add. And then ERP, enterprise resource planning, pretty important one to highlight, as a lot of businesses transition to automating their computer processes as well. An ERP is that system that basically is the heartbeat of a manufacturing company that tracks orders, sales, work in progress, and inventory, and helps with forecasting. And so we have a very robust manner to help select a software in an agnostic manner that is right-sized and lead them through that transition. A big pitfall we found is that any software company will tell you they can do it. Their software will fit for your business, right? But we're that agnostic third party that likes to make them prove it before they actually go live. And so we'll help a manufacturing company kind of like brainstorm, mind map, what are the top 5 softwares for me? and then put those companies through their paces for a scripted demonstration on that manufacturer's actual use case, and then help them go live, because huge investment, and once you get it up and live, it's really hard to rip it away. A lot of times we start with, go and do a site visit. Roy, you've probably felt this lately as you've got to know us, is manufacturing companies got 20 different things they want to work on, and it's really hard to prioritize it. Or they know they need to improve, they just don't know exactly where. So we do have a standardized approach for that. We just call it our business evaluation. This is manufacturing specific and customized. It's in those 3 pillars we talked about earlier: workforce, OpEx, and growth and innovation. It's about 40 questions. And the cool part about it is it's an anonymous employee survey that gets rolled up into, it's just aggregated into one score. And we help them assess current state for those pillars based upon the questions. And then we'll actually go on site. What do you want this company to be, next month, next year, 5 years from now? And develop that gap from current state to future state. Understand root causes of anything that's going really poorly right now. And this is the team, this is the organization's ideas. We're just documenting it and facilitating it. And then from there, help develop a roadmap to implementation. And as that kind of trusted advisor, that impact-driven community organization that we are, that roadmap isn't always just Impact Washington specific services. Certainly, we have a lot of solutions in there, but our Roys of the world, our account executives, are very well versed in the entire ecosystem of support, whether it be Apex, whether it be JSP, whatever resource it might be. And we always try to draw lines and connections to other resources that can help based upon our thorough assessment. An example there would be, we've got a question around environmental waste and waste streams. And so now when we get any kind of waste stream, and this isn't a toxic waste stream, this is a usable waste stream, kind of industrial symbiosis. We're trying to figure out how we connect that back to ecology and commerce as industrial symbiosis programs, so that they can be aware of potential reusable waste streams out there. And it looks great on the company too, because they want to do something with their waste if they haven't found a resource for it. And this is no cost. We'll do this for anybody. And a lot of times this is a way that we work with the EDCs, the Clalams of the world, to just get to know a manufacturing company. We'll go in together and do one of these. So let's see. So earlier I mentioned our small business program. So that was Miguel Moreno. So this was actually born out of Commerce's SBIF program 2 or 3 years ago, the Small Business Innovation Fund. We were one of 22 awardees for that. And so this was a pool of money we had specifically set aside for small underserved companies, any of those check boxes there on the left, as well as less than 20. And it covered up to 80 hours of consulting and training at no cost. We found a lot of those were like solopreneurs, very small, that this program is great for. And so we've got kind of a standard set of, I'd say, the first 5 steps of growing a small business: marketing, strategy, getting some processes set up on the shop floor. And this was so successful that we actually just turned it into an ongoing thing that we set money aside for every year, out of our own pocket, to invest in as part of our mission. And so I think this year we're looking to do up to 50 of these engagements across the state. So if you know any small manufacturers that could use some support, a strategy, some marketing, sales, or even improving their manufacturing processes, we'd love to chat with them. And then I think this is kind of my last resource slide here. So this is the Chips and Science Act I mentioned a while back, is what launched SCOIN. Kind of hate the acronym. It sounds like a disease to me. I don't know this, but the Supply Chain Optimization and Intelligence Network. So, all right, whatever. What does that mean? It's really 3 big prongs. So it launched that Supply Chain 101 service we've developed that's free. We'll get that QR code up here shortly. It launched a supplier scouting and matching service. So Earlier, I displayed that map of the United States with all the different MEPs. And so every center through this act had to launch a supplier scouting and matching service. So scouting is we have a Washington manufacturing company that is having trouble in their supply chain and they need to find it. Well, we'll help curate that quote, if you will, that package of info they have and distribute it. We'll go look throughout Washington state first. And then after that, we'll actually go and launch that need out to the other 49 MEP centers in the network. And then they have to field it, look in their state, see if they can get a match. Other side of that coin is we're also simultaneously scanning for those 49 other states' supply chain needs to see if there's any matches in Washington. So that's do you need suppliers or would you like to be matched real time? Those first two boxes up top. And then third point down there is we do have a Made in Washington directory on our website. Helps with visibility, helps with any company to get discovered SEO wise. It's probably 10 or 15 minutes to fill it out. You can put your capabilities on there, what industries you serve, what certifications you have, and you can get found better that way. And we'll send you this, I don't know, pretty cool Made in Washington stamp to put on your website too. That's kind of all I had programming wise. May 15th in Squim, we'll be there doing Supply Chain 101. That's good for anybody. First time supply chain manager, frontline supervisor, CEO, whatever it might be. It really walks through the best practices of supply chain. And then our goal is not to just talk at you in those. It's very interactive. And we want everybody bringing examples of how they've applied any of the supply chain principles throughout it. So we found those to be, especially locally in manufacturing. Hey, I'm trying to figure out where I can get some metal. There's a lot of interesting hyper local idea sharing and resource sharing that we found happens in those events. So encourage you to share that and attend.
That is going to be at the Dungeness River Nature Center for anyone that's interested in terms of specifically in where in Squam. It looks like you've got a few questions. Well, you're Mitch is the facilitator. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, I got a few questions in the chat, but first, great presentation, Nick. Thank you so much. I mean,
Yeah.
it really shows the wraparound services you offer manufacturers. It's not just how to be more efficient or how to improve the line. I mean, I didn't even realize you offer that marketing piece as well. So that's huge. And SEO, I mean, it's kind of what makes business turn these days, is being found on the internet, Google, all the sites really. But
Certainly, especially those small companies, they have zero time to think about marketing and SEO, and it's usually you got to actually care about it and do quite a bit. And so we've packaged some pretty economical, if you will, products around that to help step function change in SEO performance.
plug and play,
Yeah.
get it going. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. All right. Well, one of the questions from Rebecca was, are you working with Megan Davis at Ecology? She specializes in repurposing textiles, looking at spaces for industrial symbiosis.
Yeah, we are. It's man, it's so funny, small world. I've got a monthly sync up with Megan. She's Recycling Market Development Center. Her and I have been kicking around a lot of wild ideas almost for a year now on how do we get that manufacturing waste stream turned into something. And so we haven't found like the golden ticket yet on how to do that. But you mentioned textiles and her focus area there. Miguel, that small business guy I mentioned earlier, is super interwoven into the Seattle made. And there's a whole textiles center of excellence there with small manufacturing. And I know we're going to find a fit somewhere, some kind of symbiosis or sharing, but still looking for the golden ticket. Was there anything you wanted to share with that?
Hey, it's me again. I just a conversation that we had some time ago with her. She was really interested in, because we have so many boat manufacturers out here, that they could repurpose the sails, the canvas on them.
Yes.
And they're, think of blue tarps, and I don't know. Anyway, that's what our conversation was some time ago.
And what is that in the chat? Did somebody say the same thing, or was that you? It was you. Okay.
Yeah, that was me.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool. Interesting you mentioned that. I just bought a made in USA ultralight backpack, and it's made out of the exact same thing as high-end sailcloth. And I know over in Seattle, there's two or three, I'll call them kind of like cottage industry, like bag makers, whether they be for like packs for like bike packing, like camping on your bike or hiking. And it's literally like the exact same thing. It's like called like challenge sailcloth.
Wow.
So now you got my mind spinning.
It's good. That's what it's all
Yeah,
about. That's why we do these calls.
yeah.
I got another question from Paul Golly. He said, Washington State's manufacturing base has been shrinking for more than 30 years, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What can be done to address this decline, and will the tariffs help revive this important sector of the economy?
Certainly. Yeah, we've seen that. Don't think Impact Washington ourselves is going to have a magic bullet for that, but I will say AWB has some pretty good talking points on some basic policy for manufacturing that I think we would agree with, and it's I know there's in the legislature right now, there's another proposal for increased B&O tax for manufacturing businesses. Probably not going to help with expansion there. Yeah, I think also on the workforce side is a lot of companies, they've got the technology, but the workforce isn't quite there. And so workforce training board, and we've seen this in a few small little success areas with community colleges we've worked with where they're retooling their entire continuing ed and corporate training programs and going straight to manufacturing to get, their industrial advisory to say, what exactly do you need today for us to put for courses for open enrollment for workforce that'll help you get employees, ready to work in manufacturing tomorrow. And it's all so dependent on the need in the area too, right? Like if you look at the peninsula, the type of manufacturing companies there versus, I don't know, I'm in Spokane, it's heavy aerospace. Like those manufacturers are probably serving very different markets. And so it's hyper localized workforce development to help workforce.
Makes sense. That kind of plays into a question from John. He asked, do you work with Peninsula College? Well presented of all the business factors to help guide students.
We certainly do.
Yeah.
We do. As recently as yesterday, Camila Rico and I, I think Camila is still on the call, from Peninsula College, were
There she is.
working together to get a proposal in for Port Townsend-based manufacturer for some workforce training. We're also involved with Peninsula College through the PUIA grant from the US EDA as well. Just to mention a couple of touch points.
Yeah. Camila, would you like to do I don't know, come at worker training overview, opportunities and anything like that for the audience?
On the spot.
I can do it too, if you want me to.
I was gonna say, I would love for you. Public speaking is not my.
No worries. Yeah. So as an MEP, the funding scenario is very different in every state. Many of us are incorporated through like colleges, like our universities. So like Idaho is incorporated through Boise State. Follow my path here. I'm getting somewhere with this. In Washington State, we don't have any kind of specific line item from commerce from anybody. And so oftentimes we're looking at how can we help the manufacturing company get the most bang for their buck on training and get the most help, honestly, to help improve their people and their processes. And so we always first try to start with what's the need that company has. And then we'll talk budget. Okay, do you have a budget? If not, all right, there's 3 or 4 levers you can pull in the state. And 2 of those are actually through the SBCTC, community, and what's the acronym? Sorry, Camilla. State Board of Community and Technical Colleges. Yeah. And within that, there's two programs. So the JSP job skill program and CTP customized training program. And the job skills program is incumbent worker training, upskilling, reskilling, getting Washington workforce ready for the next phase of life, of the challenges they have. On that job skills program, the employer typically pays very little of the training cost. Their investment is in documenting the wages they have of those folks in the room, those trainees in the room. And so it's like a wage match principle. So let's say that, you know, Roy, the manufacturer, and Camilla put together a scope of work, and it was $50,000 of training. They typically have a little bit of skin in the game with some cash match up front. But the majority of that is they're documenting every single person's average wage, and then the hours we're doing training. And as long as the sum of those wages rolls up to the value of the project, that's good in the state's mind, because we're investing in workforce. And so that's very cyclical. There's it's on the state biennium 2-year cycle. There's an application every quarter. We're in the new biennium. We're applying for that. I mean, right now, I think the deadline's in a week. So if you got any ideas on projects on the call, better talk to Roy and Camille. We got about a week left.
May 8th.
May 8th.
So we got a little longer.
Yeah, well, we want to give you plenty of time to do the actual processing, so we'd like to back that up about a week. And then on the CTP, customized training program, that's a bit more of a revolving fund that manufacturers pay back into. So it's basically a no interest loan from the state that you pay back over 18 months, I believe it is. And then you get 50% of your B&O tax as a deduction as you make those payments. And that one is that's always ongoing, revolving fund. You can go in and put in for it any time, figure out how much money is there, and put a proposal in. So it's a bit more flexible and agile, I think I'd say, than the JSP. But
And I included a link that has the explanation of what we do, and then there's a link to the state board that explains the funding options, just in case people want to take a peruse.
Totally, yeah, and just for full transparency, we're in kind of contractor mode on JSPs. The colleges are the expert, the resource, the guide. They understand the administrative part, how to put together a really good proposal. Our job is meet with manufacturing companies, understand problems, propose them to the college. And what we found is super helpful is the college has lots of capabilities as well. And so if we go and do that discovery together with the business, you have an Impact Washington scope of work for kind of technical advisory. And then a lot of times the college will have, you know, soft skills, conflict management, negotiations, some of the basics of and soft skill side of things to add to that. So it makes the application stronger too.
Great. One of our EDC members, OSB Sling, and Squim, and I think Impact's actually done some work with them as well. They just made the news yesterday because they're going to be supplying the sling for the new travel lift there in Port Townsend, excuse me. So pretty big news. They're one of the bigger manufacturers in our areas, and definitely in Squim. But in the article I saw that the cost of their poly will about double with the new tariffs.
Sure.
So that's something they're going to have to navigate. Is there any, I mean, what do you suggest, like, coming down the pipeline? What is something that the Impact can help with as far as addressing those cost increase?
Yeah, I'd recommend they come to our supply chain workshop at Squim, because a lot of the principles there would help. And do you have dual sources, triple source, things like that, right? Have you looked at your fully landed cost and understand your entire bill of materials, right? There's going to be 2 or 3 on there that are really big hitters. One other thing that I think you guys, forget which port it is, but foreign trade zones are something to look at as well, where you can basically defer those costs until you actually pull the goods, right? And then at the end of the day, I always look at it like you're still just trying to balance an income statement and a P&L. There's probably 50 low hanging fruit levers you could go pull to reduce cost elsewhere to offset that and just get thriftier, right? And so Roy, we walked through that site, if I remember. I'm not sure if we're doing work, but sounds like we need to.
We did. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lori asked, is there an Impact Washington membership requirement to be included on your stateside directory?
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, we're open book. We want that to be free to share. And are you saying that like a manufacturer specifically to be put on our directory? Yeah. No, that's, you can just self-serve and do it real time.
Awesome. It sounds like there is someone in Squim repurposing those sailcloths for high-end bags. So someone's already on it. Look at that.
Oh,
Kristen Simmons left-hand canvas in Squim. So go check it out.
maybe you should connect her in with Megan Davis.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rebecca, nice call.
I'm on it.
absolutely. Let's see. Rebecca asked, is Impact Washington's funding safe?
Good question.
That's a doozy.
It's a doozy, yeah. So the MEP has been around since 1980 something. We've seen plenty of administrative challenges over the cycles through different presidents. We've always come back out on top. I'll acknowledge the obvious in that. So let me back up on kind of quick structure. So every individual MEP center has a unique 10-year agreement with Federal Department of Commerce, and every annual year we just get a renewal and amendment to keep doing that same work that we can do cost matching against. All the centers right now are going into their 9th or 10th year, typically of that 10-year. And on April 1, 10 centers that were due to renew actually got a letter of non-renewal that was a complete surprise. And so we're kind of digesting that, processing it. There was a substantial advocacy pushback through all sorts of organizations. You know, we've got a great federal lobbyist that keeps the pulse there. And within, I mean, it's 3 weeks since that news happened, and we've already had those 10 centers had their funding restored for 6 months. And basically, Federal Commerce NIST acknowledged that they may have overstepped a little bit on the hackathon, if you will, and they're going to be looking at it again. As far as Impact Washington goes, frankly, when we had news of administration change, we already went into business continuity planning mode, and we're super confident that we'll be good either with or without the NIST funding. We'll still be a mission-driven nonprofit. That funding stream isn't the majority of our income. And we'll be good either way. So the NIST stuff is just kind of gravy is the way we look at it.
Great. That's awesome.
Yep.
So we got some events coming up. Like you said, there's that Supply Chain 101. I think there was just a lean, or excuse me, there's a lean 101 yesterday in Port Townsend.
There was.
And
could I weigh in on that for just a second?
please, yeah.
First, the Lean 101 event yesterday was with some manufacturers. Like there was a sort of beginner, intermediate, and advanced kind of manufacturing knowledge levels. And the table that I was sitting at, we were doing an exercise where we had to take a puzzle. The pieces were all stacked up together, turn it upside down, and work as a team. And ideally, in 15 seconds, assemble the puzzle. So my team was the slowest. We were more than 2 minutes. However, by working together, within 3 more tries, we had gotten our time down to 38 seconds. And literally, we were high-fiving each other. So I guess the comment is, these events are very engaging. Whatever one's sort of level of expertise in the arena of manufacturing. The other, just a general observation, that map of the state and the different account executives that are working with Impact Washington, in the 4 months that I've been with the organization, I've been super impressed. I mean, it's dynamic, it's a learning culture, and the experience level. Just to take one case in point, Jeanette Provan, who works in Eastern Washington, she's been a manufacturer and an executive with Georgia Pacific, with West Fraser, it's people with some serious chops that also know how to go into a room and say, I don't know what I don't know, and orient really quickly toward the customer, right? So in any case, just I thought since not everyone is familiar with Impact Washington, it might be worth to share a couple of impressions with the group this morning.
Absolutely. And Rebecca just commented, Colleen said that's one of the best trainings she's ever had. And I heard her say that too, that Lean 101. And I've heard actually manufacturers mention that to us as well. They walked away and told us to run it up another one for the rest of their staff. So we've actually
Nice.
held 2 of those in the last year here in Clallam County. And both had a great turnout. And I mean, I participated in both. It's kind of cool. You sit at a line and without blowing away everything they're gonna do, but basically you have to manufacture circuits and get these orders out on time. And at first you do terrible because you're not efficient and the streamlined processes aren't there. But by the end of the simulation, I mean you're pumping out orders, and I think it's more the hands-on piece of those trainings that leave people with that takeaway that is worth their time at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's well said. A quick comment. I don't know the mix of folks on the call right now of manufacturers versus folks that are in more like office environments, but we've been saying that we're manufacturing a lot on this call, but those principles apply to any kind of business, right? And so we actually have a Lean 101 for office environments. So you can imagine the waste in manufacturing is really easy to see. There's usually a lot of inventory. People are fumbling with things, but it's actually harder to detect waste in an office environment. Think about how you would set up your computer system, right? File structure, whatever computer system you're interacting with daily. How many clicks are you making? How many screen views do you have to do to go complete that task? So James Taylor, exactly. So we have actually done multiple process streamlining, kind of like lean deployments with cities, with ports, with hospitals, with government type groups, because there's waste in any process, has inputs and outputs, and there's waste in there. So we've got a Lean 101 for admin type stuff.
That's really cool.
That can impact clients funding. Yeah, exactly.
Plug.
So Rebecca said, if Impact Washington clients want to get into government contracting, they can come to us to enter the defense industrial base.
Got it.
There you go.
Yeah, Rebecca, and most of our reps, I think, are pretty well trained as a reflex for go to Apex when you need contracting help, you want to grow into DoD. I think we might even have a question on our business evaluation that kind of points that way, but.
I wonder if I could pose a quick question.
Yeah, do you mind? I'm so sorry, Roy, because we obviously need to get together and chat even more. We are in desperate search for manufacturers as well. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we can work so closely together. And I will say, it looks like Apex might get saved with funding because we were using words like defense industrial base as where we were pointing everybody. So
you got it. You got it.
Thanks for your patience as I'm peppering you with questions.
This is why we're doing this. Yeah, Roy, I would highly encourage you to go grab a coffee with Rebecca and see when it makes sense to tag up for joint visits or things like that. And more resources we bring and then triage from there, the better.
Right.
Definitely. I see that. Can I ask? Can I interject with a question from the part of I'm watching the chat, and thanks, Mitch, for putting in the foreign trade zone link with the Port of Port Angeles. we have the port executive director and economic development director online. I'm just curious, and maybe Caleb, if you're there, could you address this? I'm guessing the port probably gets peppered with lots of tariff questions and implications. Can you speak to what extent the FTZ might be a tool or not for manufacturers here and beyond?
Sure. So, primarily the foreign trade zone that was approved on January 14th of this year. If you're producing products that are, for example, if you are importing products from Canada and you are doing value add process to that product and then sending that product back to Canada or China or Mexico, you name it, you can pretty much forego the American tariffs. So you don't have to worry about the tariffs incoming. Now, that being said, if you take those goods and you send them to China, the foreign trade zone here in America does not alleviate from other countries' tariffs, but it does alleviate you from the American tariffs. Now, that being said, even if you are producing goods, if you are taking goods within the zone and then doing a value add and then putting them into American market, there's also a play there for some folks in what's called inverted tariffs. So what it is, for example, if you take raw timber from Canada and then you do a value add on that product, whatever leaves that zone is then could have a different tariff rate than, say, timber, or have a different tariff rate than dimensional lumber. So then you have an opportunity there to actually pick the good that has the least amount of tariff on it. In addition to that, a lot of groups use these to actually produce in the zone and then defer tariffs for a period of time. So, for example, if you're producing a good, and a lot of automakers do this, and they don't want to they import, let's say, 1,000 vehicles. They don't want to pay the tariff on those 1,000 vehicles at a time. They want to sell them and pay them as they go. That's also a process. So there's a number of different ways that it can help, but especially if you're dealing with imported and exported goods.
Follow up on that, Rick asked what areas are included in the federal trade zone. I know there's a map. Is there an easy way to break it down verbally?
Sure. No, all port property. So when I applied for this, I applied for anything with port property to be a foreign trade zone. I spoke to our FTZ attorney yesterday, and he says that has put us in a position where if you are operating on the port property and you want to go into that foreign trade zone, it's a paperwork exercise at that point in time.
Great. It's exciting news. Well done, Caleb.
Thanks.
Michael Gordon mentioned that Kitsap Bank has a focus on Small Business Month and will be supporting community resources like Impact Washington. Also, they'll be hosting businesses from 11 to 1 in branches and looking for individuals' resources. So keep that on your radar as well. Thanks for sharing, Michael. Let's see.
Absolutely.
What'd you post there, Nick?
Oh, it was just that link to the FTZ map.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Great. Well, we just got just a few more minutes here. Does anyone else have any questions? All right. Well, Nick, thank you for joining us. Roy, thank you for joining us. Great presentation, great delivery. We look forward for our continued partnership down the road. If you have any questions, you can. What's the best way to reach you, Nick?
Yeah, you can just email. We can send those slides out in PDF format and have that whole directory listing.
Great. Sounds good. Well, thank you again for joining us, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for joining us for Mochas with Mitch, or Mugs with Mitch.
Mugs with Mitch. All right, thanks.
I like it.
See you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.